Are all griefs the same? Is all grief the same? Um, Speaking about this because I've just been writing just this little piece in one of the chapters of my book that I am editing. I'm working hard at the editing, so stay tuned. But also, a friend wrote to me today asking about helping with another area of grief. And this is a question that comes up a lot, so I thought I would talk here just about the different areas of grief because often people assume it's the same. So people will come to me and ask if I can help with other griefs. They'll say, "Well, I've had a relationship breakup, and that's a grief. That's a type of death, or I've lost my job, or metaphorically, a part of them that they feel like has died. All these things." And I think it's one of the problems with the word grief and all the different places we apply it. Because firstly, grief is described as a feeling, as an emotion. And grief is not an emotion. Grief is an experience. And it's an experience made up of a whole different lot of feelings. And it can be quite different for each person. So it's not one thing that you feel and one thing that everybody who's in some form of grief, generally we're talking about loss, right? Something is gone. It can be very, very different what everybody experiences. And the thing here is the causes beneath it can be very different. So from death to relationships to a loss of a piece of yourself, what's truly going underneath it, what's causing the emotions, even if they do look the same, can be really, really different. So they're not the same. And that's not to say that one's better or worse or easier or harder. It's certainly not always the case. You could have a death that's harder than any breakup you ever went through and a breakup that's harder than any death you've ever been through. But they're just different. The dynamics underneath of what we're working through and why certain feelings are coming up. And then there's the whole dynamic of your beliefs and what society has told you. Very, very different. Whether we're looking at the area of death or we're looking at the area of relationships or something else. It's really, really different. So, there's sadness. There's a lot of reasons why a person can feel sad, but the reasons underneath can be just hugely different from person to person. So I always think of it when people come to me and say, "Oh, but it's grief, it's the same." I always say it's, for me, death is my area. It's what makes sense to me. And when somebody starts talking to me about death and giving me details, I start to be able to see the picture immediately, but not so for any other situation. So people will come and say, you can help me with this as well, surely. I had one person once tell me I was very selfish. It's very selfish for refusing to help them. I said, but it's like going to your dentist because you've got a really terrible pain in your foot. And yes, the dentist specializes is working on pain in the body, right? So why won't they help? And in fact, the pain in your foot is way worse than the pain than any toothache you've ever had, So it's not even like toothache is worse. This hurts, but it's just that's not the dentist area, and the pain may feel the same, but the dynamics of what's going on underneath are very, very different. So it's it's not about necessarily what feelings are coming up and do they seem similar and does it match what you've read in a book about what grief is. It's the underlying causes, the underlying beliefs, the blocks that come up. Very, very different from death to any other type of grief. So, because I know sometimes people will follow my work to help with something else. And there will be useful stuff. Sometimes people might find parts of what I say or the entirety of what I say helpful. But, my work is purely focused on death, which just is a different dynamic. And some parts may seem exactly the same to you if you've listened to me or read me before, but there are some parts that are quite different. So, an answer, no, not all griefs are the same. They can be, the feelings might feel like there's a lot of similarities. It might feel exactly the same. sometimes. But the reasons underneath of what's causing that are totally, totally, totally different. So just something to keep in mind if you are coming to my work from the perspective of looking at relationship stuff, or, surely it all just applies. No, it's a bit different. So there are magnificent people out there doing incredible work around relationship breakups too. That's probably the biggest one that people will ask me about, because it's considered, kind of the same. It's a form of death. But as I said to someone earlier today, unless there's a death certificate, it's not the type of death I'm talking about. Not metaphorical deaths and other types of ending. Again, not because one is harder or one is easier or one is more worthy or whatever. The dynamics are just very, very different. So yeah, I would recommend find somebody, and for anyone who wants them, I can recommend a couple of people who work specifically with relationship loss, if that's what you're looking at. Make sure it's somebody who's healed completely from, as I always say with my death work, if you want to heal, you have to find someone who's healed to help you on that journey. Someone who hasn't healed and is maybe just counseling you through your feelings is not going to get you to a place of healing. So that's specifically who you want to find. All right, so I hope that's helpful if that's relevant to you. And I'll see you very soon.